And for this next segment, we have a wonderful guest, Dr. Andrew Goldstein. Andrew is a public health system primary care doctor, health activist, and organizer. He started the online community Progressive Doctors and organized the February 2017 health professionals protest against attacks on health coverage and the White Coats for Families Belong Together rallies last month. He has been active with engaging health professionals, with local health organizing, running for office, and engaging more of our colleagues in healthcare to join the Poor People's Campaign. Dr. Andrew Goldstein, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
So why don't we get our audience a little more familiar with your experience with organizing progressive physicians? How did you join activism, and what made you want to start organizing progressive doctors?
Yeah, I would actually say it was a reluctant start. Like many people, I was not politically active before the 2016 elections. I had done a lot of nonprofit and public health program development work before, in addition to clinical work, and obviously was attuned to political issues and how they impact our patients, but it was much more of armchair mode and not direct action. When the election was in the run-up, I was very compelled to act. I had a lot of friends in Indiana who heard how much Mike Pence had been anti-public health, and which, with a colleague, actually wrote an article in HuffPost, and that's the first time I sort of broke out of my shell of armchair mode to do something more public-facing. Ended up getting called by Daily Show producers to sort of do a fake Man on the Street episode with a few other people who had called out Mike Pence in the run-up to the VP debates. But again, I hadn't really done much public until that year. When Trump was elected, I think, like many people, I was filled with a lot of shock and rage and a call to action, and felt like reliance on other people wasn't a possibility, and that we each individually had to do something. And I was very inspired by the Facebook energy that was happening with the Pantsuit Nation, where these groups ballooned to hundreds of thousands and millions of people, and felt like there was a thirst for that among the medical community. So I started a Facebook group, and soon after the election, called Progressive Doctors, that ballooned to now it's about 4,000 members nationwide. And that was and has been a space for community building, for sharing information, for posting questions, for trying to boost actions to other people. And that was really the first thing, action-wise and organizing-wise, that I did.
And that's totally remarkable, and I really appreciate how much that group got mobilized during the 2017 attempts to repeal and not replace the Affordable Care Act. But why don't we fast forward to last month when White Coats for Families Belong Together? It felt like that was becoming a truly viral movement among healthcare professionals, which I had not seen anything like that before. And I was wondering if you could just sort of describe your experience with organizing doctors around helping immigrant families and these horrible separations at the border.
So the pace of political action is extremely fast now, and a lot of organizations really struggle to come up with a rapid action plan that they can do, especially when it's political in nature. And there were just so many people throughout our country, but especially in the health community, who were outraged by what was happening with child separation and detention and medical neglect and forced sedation. And a lot of us felt very called to act. We respected that specialty societies, which tend to be pretty muted on a lot of political issues, were actually out front on separation, and some were even saying child detention in general is bad for children. But it seemed like there needed to be more from grassroots, from just all of us individually. And so many of us realized that there were families belong together rallies that were happening around the country on June 30th. And we wanted there to be a presence of health professionals in white coats and scrubs to both, be solidarity to other people attending those protests, but also really to elevate this as a moral crisis that health professionals are paying attention to that has real health consequences for these children and families.
And, I think that was such a valuable addition to these conversations, because I agree with you that the outrage was appropriate and that there is definitely a moral call to action. But what I appreciated from my colleagues who participated in White Coats for Families Belong Together was that they were bringing the scientific evidence of toxic stress to these movements and giving that additional sense of urgency that what these children were enduring was abuse, that there are short-term and long-term health consequences. And I felt that that gave the movement additional credibility and urgency. And so I applaud you for giving our colleagues the motivation and resources to get more involved. So, kind of staying in that space for a little bit, what do you feel is the next steps for these docs who have gotten involved with denouncing the family separations?
So, I think one of the really important things to note is that just like I have not had a ton of experience in this space and have broken the glass on my own discomfort and habits and really tried to see if there was something that I can do, even if it was not my professional title, not something I've done. I've connected mainly via friends of friends and via social media with strangers who are also called to action, and we've done rapid response planning. And I think that these are all new habits that all of us need to have in this new political era. And fostering that, I think, is the first and foremost something that we need to pay more attention to, that like each individual person can step up and do more. We can all boost each other's efforts. I think that's a specifically, very important in this continuing crisis facing children, because reunification has not happened. It looks like it's going to be impossible in a lot of cases, and it looks like the government is really dragging its feet. And every day is another day where, a child or dozens of children or hundreds or thousands of children are continuing to be separated from their parents, and who knows in what conditions. So we have to continue to step up pressure on those who are creating the situation and perpetuating it. And I think that requires a lot of grassroots coalitions to sort of unify around the message that the health professional voice says this is immoral, this has dramatic health consequences, and it needs to be reversed and remediated.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I feel that especially as, just as personally as a pediatrician, my sense of urgency is just on fire for these kids, because I agree that when each day that passes where people are dragging their feet or making excuses or actually even making mistakes about showing parents the incorrect pictures of other people's children and saying, is this your child? And parents being told before seeing that picture, oh yeah, we know where your son or daughter is at, we're going to get a picture to confirm, only for that parent to be devastated with looking at another person's son or daughter and realizing that they've been either lied to or mistaken. And I think that where a lot of folks might want to take a situation like this and say, well, we're doing the best that we can. I think as physicians, since we're used to holding ourselves to higher standards, where it compels us to do the same for the people in government. So I was, along those lines, I was curious about your organization's or your group's next efforts to seek accountability from the Department of Health and Human Services, which is where the Office of Refugee Rehabilitation is located.
Yeah, so basically in mid-June, Topher Spiro from a think tank started posting on social media that HHS had a lot of complicity and responsibility in this crisis, and because of it, the secretary should resign. That's Alex Azar. And he posted that a few times on social media, and Zach Berger from an organization called Clinicians for Progressive Care, which is also another grassroots organization and a close sort of activist colleague, he really was taken by that approach of highlighting this person who has ultimate responsibility for this agency and is proximal to us by nature of it being a health agency, and saying we need to shine a light and hold this person accountable, and let's build a campaign around demanding his resignation. So just yesterday, today is July 11th, so just on July 10th, a start of a campaign was launched to demand that Alex Azar resign. And so far in 24 hours, we've had Doctors for America's New York chapter, National Physicians Alliance nationally, Progressive Doctors, the American Medical Student Association, and other organizations sign on demanding that he resign, which I think is really remarkable that all that happened in 24 hours. So really fantastic work by Zach, and I see my job as boosting this and helping spread the word, and I'm happy that you asked the question, because I think we need to shine this light on the people who are responsible, because I think ultimately they're the only ones who are going to demand that action happen.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And so for people in the audience who are interested in supporting your efforts, where can they find you and your team, and what should they be keeping an eye out for, in addition to the call for Secretary Alex Azar's resignation?
So I think we're very interested in health professionals in general unifying, in individual health professionals upping their skills and habits at being activists and local organizers, and that a lot of this needs to be very relational local work, not just online. And I'm interested in working with anyone who wants to do that in any health professional community. And right now, the Facebook group of doctors that you mentioned, it's a non-public Facebook group. We have a Twitter handle, which is Progressive MDS, and a Facebook page, which is outwardly facing, also Progressive MDS, Progressive Doctors. But basically, we're trying to transition to be across all health professionals and not just doctors, because all of us have important voices on these matters. And so if you're interested in short-term fights like prescribing voting, or supporting health professionals who are running for office, or supporting great candidates in swing districts who have strong views on health, they are not health professionals, but you as a health professional want to boost their message. We would love to work with you. And so definitely find us online. My Twitter handle is AndrewMakeTweet, and really message us and get in touch. And if you want to become a local organizer around health issues, we will support you.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Goldstein, for joining us here on the Zero Hour. We are very appreciative of all the work that you and your team are doing. Again, if people are interested in finding Dr. Goldstein on Twitter, his handle is AndrewMakeTweet, and they can learn more directly from him and be connected to other fantastic health professionals doing great work multilaterally across the country. So thank you, Dr. Goldstein.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll edit the rest in post.